I'm going to talk a little bit more about time factors and cycles of repetition. I'm showing on the screen an example of one cycle of repetition. This is a single planet cycle with a fixed cycle length, which is not an even repetition of 360 degrees. But just to show an example of cycle repeat behavior, I want to point out a couple of things. The top chart here are the pivots from the past. You can see I've got the low, high, low, high, low, high, low, high sequence. And the bottom chart is the projection moving forward, where you can see the first low used on the projection. We were one day off the low. The succeeding high was a very minor high, just barely made a new high over the prior high 2 bars back, and triggered off that short sale into the next low, which was 1 bar off at our third point here. And then we get a couple of days run up, and then the actual high was 2 days later. That happens with these cycles. You can be a couple of days off. That's why I like to use the math tools to fine-tune the projection, or bring in time factors to use to measure backwards and see what day is most likely for the pivot. And then the next point was this low here, 1 day off, which was this low here. You can see the market pattern is similar, but it is different. So the pattern and amplitude does not repeat necessarily, and then the pivots will repeat. Then we go from this high, projects to this high here. This looks like an inversion, but actually it is. From this high, we've got an inside bar, but that actually would be a low and a new high on the next bar. You've got that little M pattern developing there on that little double top, with the middle of the M being that inside bar. And that's what happens with cycles sometimes, so you have to deal with that on occasion. And the last pivot, the high right here, was this high over here. So that's what the repetition looks like. A couple of comments on this. You should search the Gann PDFs for these words. You should search cycle, cycles, bicycles. Then into time, you should also search cycles of repetitions, cycle of repetition. Just search the word repetition. All those things can be very telling. This information is really not that well hidden in this Tunnel Through the Air book, or even Gann's other books. It's fairly close to the surface. The public and the Gann public tends to make it much more complicated than it really is. But a lot of it is right there in your face. So you have to look at the simple things first. You don't want to overcomplicate this and think there's some big magic holy grail single key secret in there that's going to make you a gazillionaire, because that's not what it's going to be. But there is a lot of stuff in there that if you take it and you work on applying it, you're going to uncover a lot of things that are going to get you some really great trading opportunities. Moving over to time factors, let's talk a little bit about the time factors. I made a video on this the other day, and I threw a teaser out there, But I'm going to give you a few more hints on time factors now that'll make you easier to find out what some of those are. But before we get into that, I want to give a little refresher on what time sequences relate to each other in the Bible. You can look in the book of Daniel, or you can search the Tunnel Book for some of these things. I'm going to point one out I've pointed out in the past. Let's do that first. Okay, I got the Tunnel PDF open, and I just did a search for 360 degrees. That shows up one time. And it shows up here where Gann says that he had proved by study and comparing past cycles that a time or a season referred to in the Bible meant 360 days, 360 years, or 360 degrees. A measure known and understood by the astrologers in olden times and still understood and used by modern astrologers for measuring time. He knew that half a time meant 180 degrees, days, or years, because Ezekiel had said the Lord appointed a day for a year. Okay, that's a very important statement right there, and that should give you some food for thought about what a time factor may be. Now, there's another few things to take a look at. If you can't find some of this stuff directly from the Tunnel Through the Air, you should go back to Gann's reading list, and I'm going to point something out here. Here's the Gann reading list. It's broken down into numerology and astrological, and a few of the books in here you may want to look at, and I'm going to point something out in one of these. The Key to the Bible and Heaven by Ludwig Larson is an important book because he makes some important points in there. Some of the other books that you want to look at are some of the Safarial books, where he goes into the astrology, astronomy. So you want to get into that and look at that. But I'm just going to point out one passage from Ludwig Larson here to give you another major pointer. In the Larson book, in chapter 20, he's got a chapter called Repetitions of Cycles. You think that might be useful to go through there if you're looking to try to find repetitions or cycles or combination of cycles of repetitions. Reading through this chapter, there's a really important paragraph here where Larson tells us the main points to be considered are that the history as recorded in the Bible is not confined to Palestine and the south of Europe, but that it extends around the earth. When years are spoken of in the Bible, they represent the degrees of longitude. An age is a cycle of 1,000 years as degrees. There are 2 periods to the cycle. It takes 6 ages to make the 6 days of the creative period of the earth. The 7th age, as days, is the age of corresponding to the Garden of Eden story. The Bible contains history for 7 ages only. Okay, that's a very important paragraph. And that also confirms what we looked at in that last passage from the Tunnel Through the Air book. Okay, so dwell on that for a bit. And I'm going to take a look back at the Tunnel book, and let's get into time factors a little bit. Plugging in the term time factor into the search bar gives us 3 results. The first one is on page 70. 70 is a pretty interesting number, right? What is the actual the tunnel through the air in numerology, the title, and what does that represent? What does the 1940 represent? Think about that. If you don't understand that, take a look into that a little bit. What does the 1940 represent in terms of a cycle, potentially? He lists this, the term time factors comes up twice, and time factor 1 time. The next instance of this is time factors on page 78. This is a really important comment here. The measurement of time first originated and is based on the Earth's motion upon its axis. One of the smallest cycles or time factors, which repeats regularly in things that are very active and have a high vibration, is the 4-minute cycle of the Earth's rotation. 1 degree on the ascendant every 4 minutes. Okay, so now he's telling you that a time factor is also a cycle. So we can take these cycles that are mentioned here, the ones you can take the ones he mentions. You can also take the other astronomical cycles, and you can use them in whole or in divisions, and those become time factors. Important point there. Then the last time he mentions the word time factor is when he talks about his new and great discovery on major motors. Okay, so that is really important. I'm going to say one other thing here. I'm not going to go through examples of it, but now we see where the terms days, years, degrees in the Tunnel Through the Air book and also in the Ludwig Larson book, those terms are synonymous. I'm going to tell you there's one other synonymous term that goes in there that's in the Tunnel Through the Air book, and there may be more, but I'm going to give you one. That one term is miles. That is a very important clue toward really making a major step forward in this work.